Hello, you faithful Forest fanatics. You proud, passionate dwellers of the Trent End and the Bridgeford stand. You who hold the memory of Clough and Taylor like a sacred relic. This is not just another update. This is an emergency broadcast from the city ground. An alarm is blaring over the Trent. Something is deeply, fundamentally wrong. And the noise you heard last night was not just the final whistle. It was the sound of a club reaching a terrifying, historical breaking point. The air is heavy. It's thick with doubt, with anger, and with the despair that this club hasn't felt in decades. Because what happened against Midtjylland wasn't just a bad result on a European night that we waited 30 years for. No, it was a complete, emotional collapse that exposed every raw nerve ending of this football club. And now, the reckoning has begun. We are talking about the kind of defeat that doesn't just cost 3 points. It costs reputations. It costs faith. It threatens to consume the new reign before it's even truly begun. We saw it all, didn't we? The fireworks, the tifo, the sheer, beautiful emotion of being back on the European stage, only for it to be brutally, systematically dismantled by a side that, frankly, we should be handling. And now, the fallout is biblical. We have 5 massive stories that are going to define the next 72 hours for Nottingham Forest, and every single one of them is darker than the last. We're going to talk about a curse, a literal curse that this club hasn't seen in a full century. Think about that, 100 years of history, and the new gaffer has just managed to match the worst start possible. It's a statistic that chills the blood. But wait, because while the fans were screaming fury, the man in the dugout remained steadfast. He looked them in the eye and said, "We're on the right track." Really? On the right track? We have the full, tense breakdown of that post-match defiance. Does he truly believe it? Or is this the last stand of a man watching the walls close in? We need to ask ourselves what that kind of public statement does to a dressing room. Already reeling from defeat, does it inspire confidence or does it breed resentment? A manager's confidence is meant to be the shield against the storm. But what if the shield is made of glass? And speaking of things crumbling, the defensive rock, the man who has quickly become the absolute backbone of our backline, he went down early, an injury setback that could be far more crippling than the manager's tactical woes. We'll show you why losing this specific player this early in the season is the final, crushing blow to any defensive stability we had hoped to build. When your most crucial cog snaps, how do you expect the whole machine to keep running? This isn't just about a substitution. It's about the erosion of the team's entire foundation. And then there's the truly poisonous aspect of this collapse, the split, the civil war brewing in the stands. Because in the midst of the chaos and the despair, the old wounds were ripped open. There were songs for the former manager. Yes, you heard correctly. While Postecoglou stood on the touchline, the ghosts of the recent past were invoked, and the crowd, our own crowd, began chanting the name of the man who led us here. Nuno Espirito Santo. This isn't just dissent, it's a public declaration of division. It's saying, we prefer the old way. It's an owner's worst nightmare, watching his expensive new project be drowned out by the memory of the past. What does it tell you about the current state of the city ground? When the faithful are begging for the return of the sack boss? Comment down below right now with your take. Is Nuno's time truly over? Or are the fans justified in remembering what once was? Drop your comments. Let us know if you think the club made the right decision. And make sure you smash that like button if you bleed red and white. Because this channel is your therapy session. Finally, the crescendo. The moment of pure, unadulterated public fury that echoed across Europe. The 3 words that no manager ever wants to hear from his own supporters. Sacked in the morning. We're dissecting the exact moment that chant erupted after the Midtjylland 3rd goal. And looking at the owner, Evangelos Marinakis, watching it all unfold. We'll talk about the calendar, the upcoming fixtures against Newcastle and Chelsea, and the very real possibility that Ange Postecoglou will not be here for much longer if this run continues. But first, we have to start with the history. The weight of 100 years of history resting squarely on one man's shoulders. The first revelation is a record that should never have been broken, and it hits harder than any defeat. Let's not waste a second. Let's cut straight to the core of the crisis. Because football is a game of passion, yes, but it is also a game built on numbers. And the numbers right now tell a story of absolute historical horror. The manager has just achieved something that no man at the helm of this club has managed to do in a full 100 years. We are talking about Ange Postecoglou, and the record he has just set is the most unwanted, the most chilling, and the one that truly crystallizes the monumental failure of his start at the City Ground. Postecoglou has become the first permanent Forest boss in a century to go 6 games without a win. 100 years. Let that sink in, Forest fans. This is not a rough patch. This is not a couple of unfortunate results. This is matching the failure of a manager from 1925, a man named John Baines, who incidentally went 7 games without a victory before finally turning things around and keeping his job for 4 years. But this is the modern game, isn't it? This is a different climate, a different level of impatience, a different era of expectation. And the fact that we have to talk about a manager from the 1920s to find a parallel is utterly damning. The cold, hard facts: 6 games played, 0 wins, 2 draws, 4 losses, including a humiliating European defeat at home. A defeat that should have been a celebration. And statistically, historically, this is the worst start. Postecoglou arrived with a reputation for dynamic, attacking football, the Angeball philosophy. He arrived as the man to steady the ship and build a modern legacy. But right now, the only legacy he's building is one of failure and historical precedent. And what does this record mean tactically? It means the philosophy has not embedded itself. It means the team is caught between two worlds: the pragmatic, counter-attacking base of the previous regime and the high-line, high-risk pressing of Postecoglou's method. And what you get when a team is stuck in this no-man's land is confusion, a lack of identity. The results against Sunderland and now Midtjylland were not just moments of poor execution. They were symptoms of a structural, deep-seated malaise. The players looked nervous, just as the manager himself admitted. They are hesitant on the ball, terrified of making the mistake that the system often requires them to risk. Postecoglou can talk all he wants about his process and his vision, but history, literally the history of the club, is screaming back at him that something has gone catastrophically wrong. The weight of 100 years is not easily shrugged off. It breeds doubt not just in the stands, but in the dressing room. It starts to make the players question the man leading them. The great irony here is that the City Ground was supposed to be rocking. The City Ground was supposed to be a fortress, especially on a night of European return. Instead, it became a pressure cooker. And the first thing that cracked was the confidence of the team. They were undone by 2 set-piece goals, Midtjylland's bread and butter. A threat that was well known, well chronicled, yet completely ignored. The team looked unprepared, passive, and slow to react. This isn't just poor technique. It's a failure of preparation. This century-old record isn't just a number. It's a shadow hanging over everything. It validates every single doubt the fans have. It gives credence to every single call for change. It means that the next game, the incredibly tough trip to Newcastle United, is no longer just another fixture. It is a referendum on the manager's future. Because if he reaches 7 winless games, he will be standing alone, truly alone, in the history books of Nottingham Forest. This is a crisis of confidence built on historical failure. Do you think any manager deserves to be sacked just 23 days into the job, regardless of the results? Or does this 100-year record justify the panic? Comment now. I want to hear if you think the gaffer deserves more time to fix the ship, because what he said next, after the final whistle, only seemed to pour more fuel onto the fire. Prepare for the manager's bold, almost defiant, statement in the face of absolute fury. The City Ground was emptying. The boos were echoing. The chants, the truly venomous chants, were ringing in his ears. Any manager would be shattered, defeated, desperate for cover. But not Ange Postecoglou. He is a man known for his belief, his unshakable faith in his football ideology. The famous Angeball, and what he said next, in the immediate aftermath of the historical defeat, was either the most courageous declaration of confidence or the final, delusional denial of reality. He said he heard the fans, of course. He admitted they were entitled to their opinion, but when pressed on the nature of the crisis, the lack of results, and the overwhelming fan sentiment, the manager insisted, "We are on the right track." Think about the tension in that sentence. We are on the right track. 6 games, 0 wins, an unwanted historical record, a humiliating European defeat, and chance of sacked in the morning. And the man responsible says they are on the correct path. It is a statement that is either designed to shield his players from the intense pressure, or a clear indication that he is unwilling or unable to compromise on a system that is clearly, catastrophically failing. The evidence is all around him, yet Postecoglou clings to the process. He spoke of the team dominating possession in the second half, of creating chances, of putting Midtjylland under pressure. And this is factually correct. Forest had 22 shots, 9 on target. They dominated the ball, but dominance without ruthlessness is just an empty statistic. And dominance that is repeatedly undone by defensive fragility is a recipe for disaster. Midtjylland had only 8 shots and scored 3 times. It's a devastatingly efficient ratio that completely negates Postecoglou's tactical control. This is the central dilemma of Angeball right now at Forest. The team is attacking, but not scoring enough, and they are defending with the nervous fragility of a side facing relegation, not one enjoying a European return. And when the coach says right track, he is referring to the aesthetic, the fact they are playing his style, creating chances, and trying to dominate the ball. But the fans and Evangelos Marinakis care about the result, the bottom line. Postecoglou also spoke about the climate of modern football, suggesting that nothing surprises him, that the impatience is simply the nature of the beast. But this argument misses the point entirely. The climate is only harsh when the results are this bad, this quickly, and when the defensive flaws are this transparent and this easily exploitable. The fact that the set-piece frailty, a weakness that plagued his previous club, has followed him to the city ground and immediately resulted in critical goals, is not a consequence of the climate. It is a tactical failing that must be addressed. His insistence on the right track feels like a direct challenge to the supporters, and potentially to the owner. It says, trust my process or find someone else. But how much credit does he have left? This statement of defiance, while showing strong character, risks further alienating the fan base who feel their frustration is not only justified, but rooted in historical fact. They are watching a team that seems to have lost the simple art of defending a corner. Yet the manager says the direction is correct. The dissonance is deafening. If this belief is to be validated, it must be validated quickly. The trip to Newcastle is a huge test, but if the team continues to look defensively porous, especially from dead ball situations, no amount of philosophical commitment to the right track will save him. The manager's words are a desperate plea for time, but time is a commodity that is running out fast at the city ground. And time, as we're about to see, isn't just running out for the manager, it's running out for the team's stability, because the physical foundations of the defense were shattered on the pitch last night. While the tactical system was being exposed by Midtjylland's vertical play and set pieces, a far more immediate and tangible crisis was unfolding on the pitch. A crisis of personnel. It's the kind of moment that sinks the collective heart of the fan base, because it directly threatens the few areas of the team that offer genuine hope and stability. I am talking about the defensive titan, Murillo, the player who has quickly cemented his place as arguably the most reliable, most exciting defender at the club. And the crushing news is that Murillo suffered an injury setback and was forced off the pitch. Before the half-hour mark, he was only just back. Murillo had only returned to the starting lineup after dealing with a knock sustained in Postecoglou's very first game in charge against Arsenal. He was the vital return, the defensive injection of quality and resilience that the team desperately needed to anchor their shaky backline. To see him limp off early in the game was a gut punch that rippled far beyond the substitution itself. It was the moment where Forest's defensive wall turned to dust. Why is this so critical? Because Murillo is not just another center back. He is the ball-playing defender Postecoglou's system absolutely relies on. His ability to step out, carry the ball forward, and launch attacks from deep is crucial to transitioning from defense to the Angeball high-press philosophy. Losing him means not only losing defensive solidity, the ability to make those crucial tackles and interceptions, but also losing the primary engine of the attack buildup. Without his composure and passing range, the entire structure of the side looks disjointed, hesitant, and slow. The statistics speak for themselves. In the games Murillo has played significant minutes, Forest's expected goals against XGA is measurably lower. He is the organizer, the communicator, and the raw talent that gives the rest of the defense confidence. When he went down, the team instantly looked rudderless. It's no coincidence that Midtjylland's set-piece success came largely after his exit, exposing the chaos and lack of leadership in his absence. The medical team will be working furiously now, trying to assess the extent of the damage, but the simple fact that he was forced off so early in only his second real return attempt suggests this is not a minor knock. It raises massive questions about his long-term fitness and whether the club rushed him back too soon to cover for other deficiencies. This injury compounds Postecoglou's pre-existing selection headache. He is already dealing with absences in defensive positions, and now, losing the cornerstone of his defense pushes the squad depth to its absolute limit. Who steps up now? The manager has to quickly conjure a defensive partnership that can withstand the Premier League's intensity, starting with the hostile environment of St. James Park against Newcastle. The absence of Murillo means the set-piece vulnerability we discussed earlier is only going to worsen. Set-piece defending requires strong individual duels, commanding headers, and clear communication, all areas that Murillo excels in. Without him, the team is softer, slower, and fundamentally less prepared to handle the aerial threats that opponents will now ruthlessly target. Knowing Forest's key defender is missing, this is more than just a setback. It is the ultimate test of the manager's coaching ability. Can he build a solid defense using the remaining pieces? Or will the City ground become a soft touch for every opponent in the coming weeks? The physical health of the team is mirroring the metaphorical health of the club, cracking under the slightest pressure. The question now is, did this physical blow simply accelerate what was already happening in the stands? Did the sight of their rock going down trigger the ultimate emotional response from the fans, leading them to call back to the club's recent, more successful past? We're about to dive into the truly divisive chants that ripped the City ground apart. The physical injury to Murillo was the catalyst for panic on the pitch. But what happened next in the stands was the full, ugly eruption of internal division. A civil war fought through Songdad as the team struggled, and the frustration reached boiling point. A significant section of the home support did something astonishing, something deeply wounding to the new regime. They began chanting the name of the former manager, Nuno Espirito Santo. Nuno, the man who was sacked just 6 winless games before the arrival of Postecoglou, the man whose relationship with owner Evangelos Marinakis famously deteriorated, leading to his abrupt exit despite having just guided the club into Europe after nearly 3 decades. And now, the fans were calling for him. This is not simple football dissatisfaction. This is a profound statement about the club's current identity crisis. Chanting Nuno's name is not necessarily a declaration of love for him, but a visceral rejection of Ange Postecoglou. It is the fans saying, "The devil you know is better than the angel we have." It's a desperate plea for the recent past, the memory of stability, of pragmatism, and, crucially, of the achievement that brought them back to this stage in the first place. The optics are devastating for the board and for Marinakis. They spent big, they sacked a manager who had secured European football, and they brought in a high-profile, high-philosophy replacement, only to have the fans openly prefer the man they dismissed. It validates every doubt the public had about the timing and necessity of Nuno's removal. It suggests that, in the eyes of the City ground faithful, the club threw away the foundation of its European success for a gamble that is currently backfiring spectacularly. The emotional split is palpable. Nuno's tenure was defined by a strong defensive core and effective counter-attacking football, the very things that have been absent under Postecoglou. When the current team looks fragile from set pieces and nervous in possession, the memory of Nuno's solidity becomes a weapon against the new boss. The fans remember the results that Nuno delivered: survival, then Europe. They are seeing the failure that Postecoglou is delivering: a loss of identity and an unwanted historical record. This is a dangerous dynamic for any club, but especially for Forest, whose owner is notoriously quick to react to perceived failure or internal division. Marinakis, who was watching from the director's box, saw this public outcry against his chosen manager, intertwined with songs of support for his recent adversary. It creates an almost unbearable pressure on the Australian coach. It is a true climax of raw emotion at the City ground. The pride of the European return has been replaced by the pain of internal dissent. The typho of the Postecoglou campervan, "For a new generation our time has come," was symbolically shredded by the songs of the faithful. They are not asking for a new generation. They are begging for the return of the old one. Does Nuno's achievement of taking Forest to Europe grant him untouchable status in the eyes of the fans, even after the internal conflict with the owner? Comment now with your honest opinion. Is this fan backlash fair to Postecoglou? Or is it a direct message to the owner, Evangelos Marinakis, about his decision-making? The pressure is now beyond critical. This division set the stage for the final, brutal act of the night. The words that confirm Postecoglou's job is hanging by the thinnest thread. This is the conclusion of the crisis. This is the moment when all the historical records, the tactical failures, the defensive injuries, and the internal divisions coalesced into one venomous public declaration. The final straw came in the 88th minute. Midtjylland, having absorbed the pressure and watched Forest fluff their lines, hit on the counterattack. Valdemar Byskov Andresen tucked home the third goal. It was the moment that killed all hope, all expectation, and all remaining patience, and as the ball hit the back of the net, the chance erupted in a single, unified wave across the city ground. You're getting sacked in the morning. This is the ultimate humiliation. This is the manager's nightmare made public. Ange Postecoglou stood on the touchline, hands on his head, a portrait of agony, while the same fans who had cheered his arrival just weeks ago now called for his immediate dismissal. The brutal nature of the chant predicting his removal within hours shows the complete lack of faith and the visceral nature of the anger directed towards the man in charge. The gravity of this cannot be overstated. We've talked about the 100-year winless record. We've talked about the Murillo injury. We've discussed the damning chance for Nuno. But the chant of sacked in the morning is the definitive final verdict from the jury of the city ground. It completely overshadows Postecoglou's insistence that they are on the right track. The fans have stated, loudly and clearly, that the track is leading straight off a cliff. Postecoglou, to his credit, faced the music. He acknowledged the chants, saying, "Nothing surprises me anymore in football." But while he maintains his composure, the reality is that the clock is ticking down to a critical junction. The owner, Evangelos Marinakis, was watching this unfold in the director's box, a very public display of insubordination and distress among his support base. Marinakis is not known for his patience, and this level of sustained, venomous fan fury after just 23 days in the job is an almost impossible situation to recover from. The fixture list is now a hangman's noose. Forest faces a formidable trip to Newcastle United this Sunday, followed by a home clash against Chelsea. If Postecoglou fails to secure a victory, or at least a performance of defensive competence, in either of those games, the pressure will become unsustainable, and the chance may transform into reality. The manager himself admitted that if we start winning games, the atmosphere will improve. But the path to that first win is now lined with giants. What does this tell us about Nottingham Forest right now? It tells us that the club is structurally unsound. It tells us that the romantic return to Europe was built on fragile foundations that were easily shattered. It tells us that the board's decision to replace a successful manager was a catastrophic miscalculation. The city ground is not just suffering a losing streak, it is suffering an existential crisis of management, identity, and unity. The soul of the club, once bound by the legend of Clow, is currently torn between past achievements and present chaos. The faith is gone, the trust is broken, and the time is almost up. This is the crucial moment for every Forest fan to step up. We need to know, did the sight of Marinakis watching the sack chance confirm your worst fears? Smash that like button if you think a decision must be made before the Newcastle game. Comment below to let us know your ideal starting 11 for Sunday. And make sure you subscribe to Rotero Forest so you don't miss a single second of this unfolding drama. Final cliffhanger, Postecoglou faces Newcastle and Chelsea with a 100-year curse hanging over him. But who is the key player set to return from injury to save his skin? And is Nuno Espirito Santo secretly preparing his revenge? We have the exclusive reports on the potential squad shakeup and the latest whispers from the Nuno camp in our next massive update. Don't miss it.